All right, welcome everyone. If you're listening to this, you are probably gearing up for what's arguably one of the most rigorous exams you're going to face, the MViva MBA 8101 Business Environment. So you know what? Put down the energy drinks. Seriously, stop pulling those all-nighters. Today, we're bringing you a high-stakes explainer. Consider this your ultimate masterclass on the evolution of shared value CSR. We're going to break down the exact frameworks, the critical distinctions, and the real-world case studies you need, not just to pass this exam, but to absolutely crush it. Let's start with a massive number, 100 million US dollars. That's what, roughly 80 billion naira? Back in 2015, Tony Elumelu committed this unbelievable amount of his personal wealth to train 20,000 African entrepreneurs across 54 different countries. And those entrepreneurs, well, they actually went on to create over 400,000 jobs. It's just massive. Now here's the ultimate exam trap question, the one your examiner is practically waiting to catch you on. Was that $100 million just a huge act of charity? Or was it a highly calculated competitive business strategy? Well, the man himself called it an investment in Africa capitalism. Harvard Business School even wrote a whole case study on it. And Michael Porter, he called it shared value. This single question sits right at the center of the debate between traditional philanthropy and modern corporate strategy. And honestly, it's the entire focus of our explainer today. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our syllabus for the explainer. First, we'll hit the 5-step exam formula. Second, we'll define and model CSV. Third, we'll apply local Nigerian cases. Fourth, we'll identify local business frictions. And finally, we'll wrap up with the exam masterclass quiz. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the 5-step exam formula. Let's start with what is basically the ultimate cheat code. Whenever you get a business environment essay question on corporate social responsibility, you can't just, write down your feelings about it. You need a structured, absolutely unshakable argument. So grab a pen, seriously write this down. This step-by-step roadmap is going to be the structural backbone for this entire explainer and, more importantly, for your exam answers. First, you must define the concepts using precise academic language. Second, model the pathways. Third, apply it locally using actual Nigerian corporate evidence. Fourth, apply local friction to really show off that critical thinking. And fifth, conclude with nuance. Just stick to this formula and you're gonna be golden. Moving right along to Section 2, define and model CSV. So let's see how this actually builds into steps 1 and 2 of our formula. We really need to nail down the exact academic language and the historical context that your examiners are actively hunting for. Because CSV, it didn't just appear out of thin air. It's the result of a massive evolution in business theory. Let's trace this over the last 40 years. Back in 1970, Milton Friedman argued for shareholder primacy, basically saying the one and only social responsibility of a business is to increase its profits, full stop. To him, spending company money on social causes was practically theft. Then jump to 1984, and R. Edward Freeman pushes back with stakeholder theory. He argued that a business simply cannot survive long-term without recognizing all stakeholders, employees, customers, communities, the whole shebang. Finally, in 2011, Michael Porter and Mark Kramer took this even further. They formalized creating shared value, asking a really brilliant question. How can companies embed social value directly into their profit strategy? And that brings us to the absolute crucial point, this exact definition from Porter and Kramer. I want you to heavily highlight the words simultaneously in your notes. I'm telling you, it is your examiner's absolute favorite keyword. Creating shared value means policies and practices that enhance the competitiveness of a company while simultaneously advancing the economic and social conditions in the communities it operates in. One action, two benefits. It's entirely about dual returns, not just some moral obligation. And this brilliantly illustrates the big demystification moment for a lot of students. The confusion between traditional CSR and CSV really comes down to motive versus outcome. Think about it. CSR asks what a company can give back to society. It's essentially an add-on, mostly driven by reputation. The acid test here, if the company suddenly becomes loss-making tomorrow, would that activity continue? Usually, no. Traditional CSR typically dies in a downturn. CSV, on the other hand, is built in. It survives because solving that social problem is actually driving the company's profit and operational efficiency. Now, Porter and Kramer provided 3 specific mechanisms or pathways that companies use to create shared value. Number 1, Reconceive products and markets. Think designing a micro-health plan to reach millions of untapped informal workers. Number 2, redefine value chain productivity. This means fixing social problems right in your supply chain that are actively costing you money. And number 3, enable local cluster development. This is about investing in the ecosystem around your business so the productivity floor rises for everyone, which obviously includes you. Okay, let's actually model these with some real-world examples. Which brings us to Section 3, apply local Nigerian cases. Look, theory is great, but to really prove to the examiner that you understand the application, you have to bring it to life with specific Nigerian corporate evidence. Let's contrast some real initiatives. Take Dangote Cement building boreholes and youth programs in Gboko. That reduces community disruption and ensures a totally stable workforce. That right there is CSV Pathway 2, redefining value chain productivity. Now take the Tony Elumelu Foundation training entrepreneurs. That expands the consumer class for UBA and Transcorp. Boom, that's CSV Pathway 3, cluster development. Contrast that commercially integrated logic against, say, the MTN Foundation funding 50 primary health centers. Now don't get me wrong, it's highly commendable, fantastic work, but it is operationally decoupled from their core telecom business. It doesn't magically improve network quality, right? Therefore, it's traditional, strategic CSR, not CSV. Let's try a practical test from a pretty intense debate I saw on a Nigerian forum. A user asked, is GT Bank's Fashion Weekend actual shared value or just expensive PR? Well, here's how you apply the framework. Ask yourself, does the Fashion Weekend improve GTCO's competitive position by developing the Nigerian fashion industry cluster? Does it create more fashion businesses that inherently need GTCO terminals, bank accounts, and trade finance? If the answer is yes, then it's CSV. But if the event could be replaced by slapping a logo on a billboard with the exact same effect on GTCO's business, well, then it's just traditional CSR.
All right, Section 4, identify local business frictions.
This is the part where you really show the examiner your critical thinking skills. You need to acknowledge exactly why this beautiful, elegant theory is actually incredibly difficult to execute in the real Nigerian business environment. You see, CSV faces intense structural headwinds here. First up, regulatory compulsion. Mandates like CMI 2020 and NDDC levies mean a lot of what gets labeled as CSR is really just legally required expenditure. It completely crowds out actual strategy. Second, the measurement gap. Most companies, frankly, just lack the tracking systems to definitively prove their social investments are generating competitive returns. And third, short investment horizons. Between massive macroeconomic instability, inflation, and narrow volatility, corporate boards are constantly pushed into survival mode. They prioritize short-term visibility over the multi-year deep ecosystem investments that true CSV actually demands. And finally, Section 5, the Exam Masterclass Quiz. Okay, it's time for a rapid-fire quiz under exam conditions. This is going to cement your knowledge and test exactly how well you've grasped these frameworks. Here we go. Question 1. According to Porter and Kramer, 2011, which of the following best defines creating shared value? Remember, we need to recall the exact academic language we covered earlier in this explainer. All right, is it A, an obligation of companies to donate to charity? Is it B, policies and operating practices enhancing company competitiveness while advancing societal conditions? Is it C, a regulatory reporting framework? Or is it D, serving all stakeholders equally? I'll give you a quick second to lock in your answer. And the correct answer is B. The absolute key here is the simultaneous enhancement of competitive position and social conditions. Like we said, it's not pure altruism, and it's not just stakeholder theory either. That phrase, enhance the competitiveness of a company, is exactly what distinguishes CSV. It is commercially motivated and socially productive at the exact same time. Let's move to question 2. This one's a bit of a high-level analytical question. Let's say a critic argues that the Tony Elumelu Foundation is simply traditional CSR, philanthropy rebranded, because it is a totally separate nonprofit entity completely disconnected from Heirs Holdings' balance sheet. So how do you respond to defend its CSV classification and prove your deep understanding to the examiner? Well, the correct response is that legal structure does not determine economic logic. Actually, it perfectly demonstrates CSV Pathway 3, cluster development. By building this massive entrepreneurial ecosystem of 20,000 businesses across Africa, the foundation directly expands the consumer and business class that Yuba, Hares Insurance, and Transcorp inherently rely on to make money. Investing in the cluster raises the productivity floor of the entire ecosystem. And guys, this brings us to our nuanced conclusion.
The whole evolution of shared value teaches us that business and society are completely codependent systems. Like Michael Porter said, if you solve a social problem that also improves your competitive position, you haven't just done good, you have done business. In a Nigerian environment that is heavily constrained by infrastructure gaps and skill shortages, CSV isn't just some nice theory, it's commercially urgent. So, as you prepare for your exam and eventually step into the boardroom, ask yourself, in a world of infinite problems, which one will your business solve?